Christian parenting.
Welcome to Pardon the Mess. I'm your host, Courtney DeFeo, and on this podcast, we talk about raising kids as Christian parents. It's so very important for me to honor God with my family and the 2 kids that He's given me. But honestly, it's not always neat or easy or tidy, but it's always worth it. So join us every week to laugh and learn together on this beautiful and messy journey of parenting. Friends, a couple episodes ago, who knows, I'm always lost in time. I said, let's start doing game changers, like things that have changed the game in the DeFeo house. One of those is the stitch gun. I already linked to that. We are loving it. In fact, I used it on my buddy Jill Jefferson the other day. We were in the office at Christian Parenting and her dress needed us some help. And so she's like, bring your stitch gun. And, you know, I think she's sold. I'm making, I almost gave you a biblical reference. I'm making disciples of the stitch gun everywhere I go. That's terrible. But another thing I want to share with you is we love dresses in the DeFeo house. Like, I'm obsessed. I just love a good dress. And so Ella was looking for one for a wedding and didn't want something too nice and didn't want something too casual. And so she looked and found it on Amazon. It's a one shoulder, kind of ties at the waist, mid-level. It is gorgeous. It looks like $1 million on her. And I think it was 40 or 50 bucks maybe. So I'm going to link to that just if you're looking for a cute dress for this fall or holiday season. They've got it in lots of different colors. So from one mom to another, I got you covered on this cute dress. So today's episode is with a girl that I love named Reese. And she is the daughter of one of my dearest friends. And I know this family really well. And we have talked for some months about, is it the right time for her to share her story? In the time we recorded this, she was just about to go off to college, as you'll hear. And she said, yes, she wanted to get on and talk about what she had been through. And so she's brave, she's courageous, she's so wise. And I think God is calling her into ministry. And I can't wait to see all the places she's going to go. And God's going to use every bit of this. So, you know, AirPods on. She doesn't get into great detail, but AirPods if your kids are in the car or if you're a victim of abuse and just want to skip over this one, that's fine too. But I think all of us will be encouraged as parents to go like, what do we do when one of our worst fears comes true? How do we handle that? She gives great practical advice. And I just want you to hear from an 18-year-old that has been through a lot and was raised in a great Christian home with great parents that try to do everything possible to protect her. Yet this is her story. And so I think you'll be encouraged. I think you will hear an authentic faith. And I think you will be less scared that our kids could go through some stuff. Because it's like, if this is what's on the other side of it, as she says, she would do it all over again, which is just such a statement. So I also know there's some fear. I had fear when my kids were little, like I don't want anyone to hurt them or touch them. And so couple things you can do, I think, and I'm not the expert on this. I would go over to Sissy Goff or David Thomas or your pediatrician or, you know, a counselor and say, like, what's the best way to talk about body and protection and safety for your kids at the age that they're at. But one book that we used was called God Made All of Me, and I'll link to that. It just is so well written, again, with age appropriate terms and just talking to them about, you know, how God made your body and who's it for and not for. And it's great. And so then another resource is Megan and Mary Flo are at Birds and Bees, and they talk about all things body, and they do such a great job. So I'll link to their Instagram, but they've also been on Pardon the Mess. I'll link to a couple episodes that Cynthia did with them. So just please, I'm praying right now. Like I want y'all to enter into this just feeling expectant and not fearful, and just go like, wow, like look at what God did through this girl, and just be encouraged that you can do all the things, but God's got them at the end of the day. So here we go. My precious friend, Reese. Hey, Reese.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
You're so cute and you're green. Y'all are going to be able to see her on a video, but I have wet hair in a bun per usual, and she's got her gorgeous hair curled today. So like I mentioned in the intro, I'm very good friends with your parents. I've known you since you were a baby. We haven't done a ton of time in person because we live in different states, but I just love you, and I'm so excited for people to hear from you. So tell everybody, if you're okay with that, where you're headed. You got, as we're recording this, it's in August, and you've got a big move coming on. So tell me about that.
Yes. So I'm going to Stanford University in the fall in Birmingham. So I'm so excited for that.
Do you know what you're going to major in?
I'm doing Christian ministry.
Oh, cool. Okay, that sounds right for you. How are you feeling with your siblings? I feel like, is there like all tears, or is everybody just acting like you're going to camp? Like, how's it going over there?
It definitely feels like camp, but there will be tears. I feel like we kind of, now that it's closer, we all are like, oh no. But it'll
Yeah,
be
it's
it'll
like
be bittersweet for
you're like
sure.
last dinner, last walk on the
Hmm.
all those
All the
things.
laughs,
Oh
yes.
my gosh. I remember my sister went and I was in some ways ready for her to go. And then it wasn't like a weekend. I was like, wait, I want her to come back. So
Right.
I think it will, and I don't know about you, but it will strengthen those relationships that you just realize that you miss somebody when they're gone. So it'll fix lots of things. So, all right, well, let's dive in. We're going to go deep quick. So I want to know, you were raised in an amazing home with amazing
Mhm.
parents. How can we as parents impact our children's faith but not force it? And I'm so bad at this. Like I want to manipulate the whole thing. I want to dictate the whole thing and it's just not how it goes. So give us some tips on what you experienced and how we could do that better.
Okay, I know for me personally, just like being able to see my parents' faith has been a huge part of my faith. Like walking into the kitchen and seeing my mom's Bible open and hearing about her plan that she's doing, and just like know, like they're not forcing it on me, but
Uh-huh.
knowing that I can see what they're learning and see that they're in their word, in their prayer,
Yeah.
chasing after the Lord. So I think that's definitely been a big thing for me. And then also just having it as an open conversation
Yeah.
of not so much like, okay, let's sit down and talk about the Bible, but like, hey, how was your day? Like, what was one thing you learned about the Lord? Or
Mm,
this is what I'm learning, and this is what I noticed, and what I've been um, struggling with, or like rejoicing in with the
yeah.
Lord. So I think that's definitely been the two biggest things for me of it just being a safe space to ask questions and seek out the Lord and see what my parents are like.
Yes. Your mom is particularly really good at that of just like inviting the conversation. So did you always feel that way? Were there seasons of your life where you're like, I don't really want to talk about that, but you knew she was available, you just didn't really want to go to them about it? Or has that just been consistent? Y'all have always openly talked about it?
I think we've always kind of openly talked about it.
Yeah.
Just ever since I was a kid, it's just been like oh, guess what, Mom? Like, I saw Jesus today in this way, or this is what I'm learning. So I think it's always kind of been an open conversation, but there's definitely been moments where it's like, okay, I always go to my mom. Should I ask a question somewhere else? And I think
Yeah.
like she's encouraged like safety in the home, but also like reaching out to your small group leader or teachers or whoever it is. So I think those have both been really good things that she's done with us.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. All right. Well, let's dive into your journey. You've had so many great moments, and I want you to share about those too. But particularly the last several years, you've had a significant journey with the Lord, and you're so brave to share about this. I saw that you shared at your school, and it is your testimony. And so you and me and your mom have been praying, like, is this the right thing? And I feel like it is. I think you're ready to kind of tell it in a more public space. And so tell us about whatever details you want to, what you've been through, and then we're going to talk about how you experience God on the other side of that.
Okay, definitely. So, growing up, I was a gymnast, and it was my thing. I loved it so much. I started when I was 3. Ever since I could walk, I've been doing it. So that was just my joy. It was my passion. But I ended up quitting when I was 13, just due to mental blocks and injuries, just kind of random things. Wasn't really anything that I noticed. And then in 2021, I remembered everything that I had gone through with a coach of just tons of abuse, all different kinds of just so many hard things that I had grown up with that I thought were normal.
Mm,
Just because I'd been through it so long, it didn't feel wrong just
hmm.
since it was all I knew.
Yeah.
So that was really a huge struggle of going into this pit of like, okay, like this is my story now, and how do
Mm,
I deal with being abused and being like everyone's calling me a victim? How do I deal with that word? So throughout that, we ended up going to court with the coach, and that lasted about a year and a half, which was also difficult of just trying to go through high school and going to court during high school, and it was just this crazy
yes.
back and forth of two different worlds that were wanting to collide but couldn't.
Right.
And then we ended up going to trial last July, and that was about 2 weeks. It was honestly one of the darkest things I think I've ever done.
Yeah.
And I remember like sitting with my mom and just saying, I think that was honestly more traumatic than what actually happened to me in the
Wow. Yeah.
um, and it was really just this tough wrestle with, okay, who is the Lord now, and
Mm,
how do I walk through this trial with Him?
right.
Um, and at the end of trial, we got the verdict, and it was not guilty, and it was just completely
Ugh.
wrecked everything I knew. I had felt like I was in a good place with the Lord. I had felt like I had had boldness and faith that was strong. And so I
Hmm.
think when I got that verdict, it was just like everything I had known was shattered. And it was like, okay, Lord, like you asked me to walk in truth,
Mm,
me to have a childlike faith, to be bold. And then I did that and I didn't get the result that I was praying for.
yeah.
So I think that was definitely a huge wrestle just throughout this whole year of finishing up senior year and still struggling with triggers and PTSD and trying to still wrestle with who the Lord is and how I can look at myself.
Yeah.
So it's kind of been the biggest part of my story. There's
Yeah.
been little moments in between, but that's been the biggest thing that I've been walking through recently and I'm still
Yeah.
walking through.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah.
Let me ask you this. Well, first, I remember distinctly like how good you were watching you going, we're going to see her in the Olympics one day. And I remember your mom saying, we keep telling her her identity is not a gymnast.
Hmm.
And I think that's so huge. And for so many parents that have a kid that are obsessed with their sport to go like, you can do this and you are very good at this, but this is not the core of who you are. And I think that's a huge distinction that, looking, you didn't know what was coming. Your parents didn't know what was coming, that you would walk away from that. But I feel like, did you get that when they were saying that? Like, I love gymnastics, but I am not a gymnast to my core as my identity. Did you feel that growing up, that distinction?
I definitely did. It was hard. I feel like I still struggle with it.
Yeah.
Of just like, oh, like whenever someone asks me what I do, I'm like, I used to be a gymnast. Like I
Yeah.
feel like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
still try to kind of identify myself with it
Right.
because I
Right.
know it's a huge part of my life. And I think when you
Huge.
do something for so many hours and you're there all the time, it's like, how does it not become your identity?
Yes. Correct.
So I think definitely then I did not know the difference
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
who I was, but I think now looking back, I can be able to hear my mom's words of this is not who you are and it will never be who you are.
Yeah.
It's definitely a part of you, but it's not your whole
Yeah,
identity.
all of you. I love that. Okay, so back me up on the timeline. So at the time that you quit, was that abuse part of it? Like, give me the gap between when you quit and when you like remembered. Was that years in between or months, or how did that come about?
Yeah, so I quit and I think it was either 2018 or 2019. And then we moved states. I finished up middle school. So it was a couple years. It was about 2 or 3 years after I'd quit that I remembered everything.
Okay.
So it had been a little bit.
Okay. And you were just doing kind of regular counseling, just checking in, and that came to pass that way?
Yeah, just through
Okay.
counseling and just we actually did this chart and it was like going through the seasons of my life and like which one was the darkest, which one were you the happiest in,
Mm,
which one did you feel the most afraid? And so just like through that and counselors just like realizing, oh gosh, like this was not how it was supposed to be.
gosh. Okay. So what that must have been really, really hard. And I'm so thankful that you're surrounded by great counselors and parents, but the decision to like proceed with a legal situation was definitely your choice, right? Like nobody was making you. So what made you lean towards doing that? Because that is a huge ordeal because there was media, right? I mean, there was a lot of things that you were like, okay, we're going to battle. And it wasn't like a 2 week thing. It was years, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah, I think definitely at first I will admit I really did it at first out of just wanting revenge and just feeling so I was in such like a lost place of okay, you did this to me and I'm gonna get back at you.
yeah.
So I think that was definitely something I had to wrestle with in my heart of where is my heart? Is it in the right place? Am I doing this for the right reason? And I think throughout the years of court, just realizing that through forgiveness and through healing, that it wasn't about me getting back at him, but it was really to protect anyone else that could have walked through that.
Right.
And showing girls that you do need to speak up and your story has power. And even learning with that with the not guilty verdict of, okay, yes, it didn't go the way I planned, but I shared my story and that's power in itself.
Yeah.
I don't need a verdict to tell me that my story is powerful. So I think
Yeah.
definitely realizing throughout of doing court not for revenge, but for my own healing and for forgiveness, and just being able
Wow.
to have closure of, okay, this is a part of my life, but it's not going to be the whole story.
Gosh, that's major. That's major. Oh, Reese, like I'm trying not to look at you because I want to cry. You're such a strong girl. Did y'all know that I really do love to hear from you? So I can't get to all the DMs, but when you DM, I really look for them and try to respond. And I got one question the other day that made me so happy. One mom said, "Hey, is there another prayer journal coming up? Because we did it last year with our Momco group, which is the former MOPS organization. And she said, we want to do it again." And I'm like, yes, we have a new one. And I'm so excited to tell you about it. It's called A Life of Faith, written by the team here at Christian Parenting. We all work together to put together a journal about your child's life of faith. So all year long, every Monday here on Pardon the Mess, we're going to be praying through how our kids can know, love, follow, and share Jesus, which is the whole ballgame, right? And so the point of the journal, you can go on over to cpgive.org to get your school year prayer journal, but there's notes in there, places you can take notes on each child. There's actual prayers. There are verses you can look up, and then like a mini devotional, a mini short idea around that topic. And we're praying through every Monday in the school year. So 37 weeks together. You can get the journal, do it with friends, do it with your MOPS groups, and then come on over to Pardon the Mess starting right after Labor Day when the school year begins, and we will pray together. And I love it. It's one of my favorite things I didn't know I would love. I resisted it because I don't like a lot of to-dos, but I needed it in my own life as a mom. So get your journal. Let's pray together this school year. cpgive.org. We are well into the school year, and if you are looking for a little extra support for your kids and their academics, or if your kids are looking for an extra challenge in school, I highly recommend IXL Learning. IXL Learning is an online learning program for kids ages pre-K to 12th grade. It covers math, language arts, science, and social studies. IXL is designed to help them really understand and master topics in a fun way with positive feedback. And the best part is that IXL is so easy for parents. One site gets you all you need, and IXL customizes learning for each child and their needs. Everything on IXL is organized by grade, subject, topic, and subtopic, making it simple to find activities for the exact skills you are covering. And IXL offers instant feedback and explanations of new topics as kids are learning to use the program, so you can feel confident that your kids will gain an understanding of the skills they are learning. Make an impact of your child's learning. Get IXL now. And Pardon the Mess listeners can get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when they sign up today at IXL.com/today. Visit IXL.com/today to get the most effective learning program out there at the best price. Get us through. You are, going towards the end, like we're going to get this closure, and then it's not guilty. What was that like? And what did God teach you through that? Because it had to have been insanely disappointing.
Yeah, it was definitely, I feel like I still think about it. I mean, I can hear every word, every moment, like the whole room was just like, it's hard to describe, like being in there.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a big blow. I mean, I was
Yeah.
not expecting it, and I had had so much trust in the Lord of that was his plan.
Right.
But I think through that, my biggest thing with that, we had eight charges with the coach. So we heard not guilty 8 times. So
Oh,
that was
gosh.
also hard of just hearing it over and over, and it's just like replaying in your head of all the reminders of feeling like my story wasn't good enough. But I think throughout this year, the biggest thing for me that I've been walking through with the Lord is replacing each time that I hear not guilty with a thank you.
Wow.
So whenever I'm worshiping, whenever I'm praying, I just say thank you 8 times. And it just
Wow.
reminds me of like, yes, it didn't go the way I planned, but it went the way God planned. So I know it's going to be good.
Wow.
So just with replacing each one, it's been a huge step with the Lord of just, okay, thank you. Like, this is a good thing. And like, obviously, it's the evil of this world. It didn't turn out the way I had in my head, but I know that there's going to be a story with it. I know that there's going to be someone who needs to hear that this is the way that it went.
Yeah. Wow. That is not something I would think to do, is say thank you and replace. That's major.
I definitely didn't think of it at first.
Yeah. That is huge. Okay, so there's parents listening that are like, this would be our worst nightmare. Like this would be the thing, one of the things that you just try to protect your kids over and fear and all that. And I reached out to your mom this morning and I was like, give me some thoughts. Like what would you say to parents? And of course, in your mother's wisdom, she said, just whip this out in a text as if it's normal. She said, God can use even our worst fears and redeem them. We can't protect our kids from their testimony. And I was like, dang. God is always takes what the enemy intends for evil and uses it for good, maybe even for their very purpose. This is about trusting God with our kids' growth and process and even their pain. Which is just like mic drop. So I think that's the question is like, okay, and you guys have parents that are like, no cell phones till high school, no sleepovers. I mean, like, no iPads. Like, they've protected y'all and you knew all the things. And so
Right.
that reality as a parent to go, and she says, you cannot control and protect your child from everything. You just can't. And so, what I guess my question would be like, of course, you wish this had never happened, but how do you look at it now, knowing like this is a huge part of your testimony? Are you grateful, or you just see the purpose, or how do you look back at your life now?
Yeah, I'm definitely grateful for it. And, it's taken so much work with the Lord, but just to be able to say, like, if I had to go through it again, I would. And just seeing, like, the places that I've been brought and the things that I've seen with the Lord. And He's just shown up in such a different way. And before remembering everything in trial, I really didn't know the Lord. I
Mm,
knew of him and I knew my parents' faith, I knew other people's faith, but I really didn't have my own relationship with him. Um, so I think throughout my story and throughout, even in gymnastics, of looking back to every memory that was hard and even the good ones,
mm,
I can just see the Lord and I know, like, this is who this is who he wanted me to be.
mm.
And this I would not be who I am today without it. I would probably not be going to Stanford. I would probably not be doing ministry. And it's just crazy
Wow.
to think about of like, okay, would I have a heart for the Lord if I didn't walk through this? And would my
Right.
walk with him have it would have been completely different. So just so
Yep.
thankful of like I've seen the Lord show up in so many ways and he's so personal with it that I really wouldn't trade that for anything.
Yeah. I'm going to share your site, but I watch you share on your Instagram page and just things that is like, that is a faith like birth in a fire. Like you can tell it's almost like, and this is a silly example, not silly example, just different. When Ron had cancer and he's doing great now, if y'all don't know that, but it was like every verse, every song, everything you've ever like read and done in church, like it comes to life. You're like, those words mean something. And I can tell that about you when you're sharing. It's not just like you're copying somebody else's sermon or you just found a cute graphic and you're posting it up. Like, you know, the depths of the pain and the depths of trusting and being dependent on him. And that's what we want for our kids. And so, it's hard. Like, I don't think we're saying to parents, like, your kids have to go through a rock bottom but they do have to discover their need, right? Like, it's like you do have to hit a moment in your life where you're like, oh, do I know him personally and do I trust him? And that happened with me at Auburn. I was like trying to do all the things and then just broke down one day and was like, oh my gosh, I've been trying to fill everything in my heart, whether it was accolades or boys or whatever. And I needed Jesus the whole time, but I had to come to that discovery myself, you know? Okay, so what else? How did you experience God? Were there times that you were like, did he send you signs? Did he speak to you directly? Or there's things that you're like, only a God would be able to say that to me or do these things?
Yes, I feel I've had to write them down. I feel like there was a new one every week. It was just crazy. I mean, at first, I feel like the biggest one for me was I had so many visions, so many dreams, so many just like him working through other people, even of getting a text of this was what I prayed for this morning, or now they're sending me what I had in my vision. So
Wow.
I had my big one though, which was literally the craziest thing. I still think about it every day. I did like a healing prayer, just trying to figure out in the midst of remembering everything, trying to debrief and
Hmm.
unpackage it all.
Yeah.
And so I had this vision of just a safe place with the Lord because the whole time I just felt so unsafe. It was
Mm,
like I didn't know who to trust, I didn't know who to run to. So I just had this vision of being in a field of yellow flowers, and it was so specific. and I can just see it in my head. And so that
Wow.
was like my vision, my safe place of this is where I run to when I want to go be safe with the Lord.
Mm,
This is where I run to when I would just want to sit with Him and just be on my own.
mm-hmm.
And then my cousin actually bought me a painting, and she had no idea. I had told no one about the vision except for my mom. She bought me a painting, and it was a picture of me in a field with yellow flowers. And I was like, there is no way. Like, God, what in the world?
Oh my
I mean,
God.
I got chills. I was like, wow, like, how detailed is he to do that? And then I got a text from a friend the next day, just like random. I had not talked to her in years. And she was like, hey, the Lord spoke to me, and I just had this vision of you in a field with yellow flowers, and I just had to.
Reese, that's so
I
cool.
know. I was like, okay, God, I know, I knew he was real, but now I know. Like,
Nine,
I know he's
yes.
there. I know he's watching. I know that he's so personal. And it was just the craziest thing of, okay, I'm experiencing God in this whole new light, and it's just insane. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
even know, there's really no words for it of just wow. Like, it was crazy.
Whoa. Okay, that is so cool. Okay, you have to send me a picture of the painting. That is
Uh-huh.
incredible. Oh my gosh. Okay, so what do you know now? And you've shared a lot of this already, but anything else you want to share about what do you know now about God on the other side of this? And I know you're still going through some of it, but that you didn't know before the entire thing started.
I think there's definitely been a lot. I feel like I learn something new every day, and it's a
Mhm.
huge journey. But I think one of the most recent things for me has been I've wrestled a lot with the table of the Lord. I sat in Psalm 23 for a long time of just Him preparing a table in the midst of my enemies. And I
Mm,
think like I've done a lot of work of thinking about this table and am I sitting at it? Am I looking at the enemy? Am I looking at God? What am I doing? And so I think with that, I've wrestled a lot with okay, there's distractions all around me, and the enemy is prowling. But he will not prevail.
mm,
So I think that's been a big part of sitting at this table with the Lord and realizing that there's always going to be evil around me.
yeah.
But the Lord's with me and He's at the table.
Mm,
It's just been the most sweet thing to just see His presence there and to just see who He is. And then also realizing, I feel like I looked down on myself for so long.
yeah.
And I labeled myself with all of these lies and just who I was of calling myself abused, calling myself broken
Mm,
or dirty or any of these things. And then also, even just with trial, having people tell you who you are, of
wow.
just like, and I think definitely too, like the lies that my coach told me, of just so much verbal abuse throughout the years of who I am and if I'm good enough or if I'm not. And so I think
Mm,
realizing that those truths that they had said were not spoken in love, and I think
yeah.
the difference of the Lord speaks truth in love, while as usually man with evil intention doesn't. And
Yeah.
so seeing the difference of, okay, the Lord has truth and love, and this is what I want to listen to, and this is the voice that I should be listening to, versus, okay, these so called truths were spoken with evil intention, so why am I listening to that?
Yeah.
So I think differentiating the voice has
Love
definitely
that.
a big thing the Lord's been showing me and teaching me of just giving me a new perspective of which voices I'm listening to and who I'm hearing.
Yes, I love that. And it makes me even think as kids, it's like we're teaching y'all to respect your teachers and respect your coaches and all that. And so, of course, you would equate them with being, of course, they are loving. Of course, they want the best for me. And I think that distinction is really huge for you to go like, okay, did they have the position of authority? Yes. But was what he was saying the truth according to the gospel? No. And it wasn't truth for your heart. And so I think that's a massive even challenge for us as I'm thinking as a parent to go like listen to what they are believing is gospel from their teachers or coaches and be and disrespectfully challenge that to be like, I know that they're your teacher, but that is actually not accurate about you.
Right.
Wow, that's huge. Okay, I want to talk about the table for a second. I want to go back. I will send it to you, but there was an episode I did when I started this podcast with Jamie Winship, and he's got these crazy cool stories about working in Baghdad and God showing up. And he said he was, I think it was in Baghdad or somewhere in the military situation. And he went to this table and it was supposed to be pretty hostile. And it was different military people from different countries. And they had set a table for 8, I think, and there were 7. And he said, "Is someone else coming?" And they said, "No, it's for the guy that's always with you." And he was like, "They're all here." He was like, "No, this is for the guy that's always," I think he said, "always walking behind you or in front of you. He's got a sword." And they're like, "I'm sorry, what?" And so they always saw this man with him, but they never knew he was there. And I just thought, how cool. As you said that, I was like, yes, he's going to seat us at some yucky tables, but literally there's like a seat right next to us. And so I love pondering that for my kids, because it's like, as your mom launches you into college, it's like the protection, total protection and control is not possible. It's just not. And we want it to be. We want this little bubble. We want you to stay neatly inside of it and not fall down. But I'm thankful for what you're about to bring to your classmates. So tell me about your desires. You're going into Christian ministry. Do you know even yet what that looks like or what you're hoping for?
I've had a few things that I've just really had felt the calling for. I was actually at a conference, C.D. Robertson's
Yeah.
LO conference,
Yeah.
and that was really where I first felt called to ministry. I'd never thought about it before, but I have such a huge heart for Kenya. We usually go every year, so that's been just a huge place for me that I really feel led to, and that I would love to go. I'm going actually next summer,
Cool.
so hopefully, just I would love to live there. I would love to be there. Honestly, forever. I could live there forever. I love it.
Oh,
So that, and then I have a huge heart for speaking. I would love to do really just wherever the Lord leads me. I'll
yeah.
honestly go there. But I'm really excited for it. I can't wait.
I can't wait to watch. Okay. So tell us just real as we start wrapping up. Tell us about Kenya. So your parents have been taking y'all there forever. Y'all have a ministry there you're involved with, which we've talked about before, Untold. But tell me what it's like to be there. Like, why is it somewhere you'd want to be the rest of your life?
It's honestly really indescribable, but it's just so amazing and it's such a sweet place with the Lord for me. Of just every time I've went, there's been something new that's just it rocks my whole world of being with the people and something about like they just love the Lord so fervently.
Yeah.
And just seeing them worship through when they've been through abuse, they've been through child loss, they've been through divorce, and all these things of just seeing their faith be so bold and unfiltered.
Yeah.
Whereas I think here we kind of try to cover up the hard stuff
Yep.
and cover up what we're walking through. But I think with them it's so bold and just this is the Lord and this is who I praise. And even though I'm walking through this, I have so much joy because of Him.
Yeah.
So I think always going there, it's just so unique because there's so many people, so many different and really hard stories, really hard, and just hearing all of those and seeing, okay, like this is the same God, like the
Right.
same God that's here is over there, and so that's just been really cool to see of seeing my faith and my siblings' faith grow over there and just bringing it back of this is what we learned and this is what we saw and this is who I learned the Lord to be. It's just so crazy and so beautiful, and I'm just so thankful that we have the opportunity to go and the opportunity
Yeah.
to serve and just be loved over there.
I love it. I remember a pastor from somewhere in Africa came to our church one time in Orlando, and he said, "I don't think Americans realize that we send missionaries to help you guys in America. For it's like we're not all over here suffering. Like we are full of the
Right.
Lord and doing great. We want y'all to have the same experience." And that was such like a eye opening moment for me to be like, we think we got it all together, but they're like, "Hey, this is what it really looks like to live
Right.
boldly," and that's amazing. I'm dying to go with y'all sometime, but. All right, so I want to leave just the last couple minutes to you. Do you have one last piece of encouragement to parents that maybe have a kid walking through something really, really hard and they're, resenting it almost? Like, I didn't want this to be my kid's story. Would you have encouragement for them or for the kid that's walking through it?
Yeah, I think definitely I went through it with my mom a lot and just going back and forth of conversation. But I think for parents, definitely just let your kid learn. I think that's a huge thing of just like let them explore, let them go through the hard thing and don't try to, like you said, put a bubble around it. Because I think if my mom had shielded me or told me not to go to court or told me, hey, this is going to be hard, maybe don't.
Yeah.
But I think letting them walk through the hard things, letting them walk through the valley with the Lord, because the other side is so much brighter, and knowing that for me, knowing that my mom was there and she was available, but knowing that she wasn't forcing it on me,
Yep.
so sweet of, okay, she's letting me walk through the hardships. And clearly, like, it was hard on all of us. I mean, I know that my mom didn't want it for me. She didn't choose it
Yeah.
for me. But just seeing her allow me to go through it
Mm.
and allow me to struggle and allow me to tell her, like, hey, this has been really hard. Or, hey, I'm having nightmares again. Like, I really need you. And
Mm.
just, I feel like it's such a beautiful picture of how it is with the Lord of, okay, like, God isn't making me do these things, but he's walking through it with me.
Wow.
And so I
That
think
is,
that's just definitely my encouragement for parents of, okay, don't push your kid in any which way, but wherever they go, walk with them in it. So I think
wow.
that's just my little piece of encouragement that I've learned. But yeah.
Reese, that is a bomb of wisdom. That's so good. And I think it's not just for these scenarios, like something that you've been through, but it's even like, okay, let's say your child is going into middle school and they have the worst teacher, none of their friends are nice, and we just want to scoop them up and take them out of it. And so I think it's so counterintuitive to let our kids struggle and then we watch it. It's like, it's awful. So that's such a word for all of us for this, even this school year, to say, like, let's stand with them in it and not say, it's almost like we are like born to rescue and save. It's like, oop, they're hurting. We go swoop them up and pick them up, off the thing. And there's times to do that if they're obviously in a bullying situation or whatever, we want to get them out of it. But it is a hard thing to do for parents. And I'm just so glad they're hearing from you, because we could have your mom on here, but I think hearing you and your authentic faith that you didn't script this is what God's birthed in you is so exciting and gives me great hope. I'm so proud of you. And I can't wait to be front row when you're like Sadie Robertson and I'll be there cheering you on. So thank you for doing this.
Of course, yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Pardon the Mess. As always, we've got more encouragement and resources over at christianparenting.org. And you can also stay connected with us on social media at Pardon the Mess. And if you like this episode, I'd love for you to do two things. Press follow on whatever podcast platform you love, and also be sure to leave a rating so other parents can find us. Remember, you're never alone in this beautiful mess of parenting.